the end of my career. And it was something that really set me apart because I was able to become a market authority and really attract a lot of business. So today I wanted to do a bit of a live video on, how you can really add this to your toolkit and really add a lot more value to your clients in terms of what you do in the area of property investment. So in terms of, I think the key thing for you is, rather than having that transactional focus for your clients, is how can you have more of a relationship focus? And I do a straw poll with, in my groups and with clients, and I ask them the question, right? Who would love to be financially free in retirement? Who would love to have passive incomes, choice, and abundant cash flow? And the security that comes with that. And 99 people out of 100 would put their hands up and want that. And I'm sure if you asked your clients, they would be no different. So, how can we add property investment to add value to our clients? So I think it's around, rather than thinking short term, we've got to think long term. Right? We've got to think long term. We've got to ask better questions. So, because if we do, it'll allow us to open a lot of opportunities. Because what we can't become, and what we want to become, is we want to become the hub for, if you imagine a wheel, you want to be the hub in the center of the wheel. The spokes going out, the different connections that you can build. And one of the beautiful things about focusing on property investment is your clients will have more needs. They'll have needs for people like a buyer's agent, a great accountant, a financial planner, property managers, building inspectors, a range of different tradespeople, etc. Right? So you become the hub in the wheel when you start this conversation and start to educate them around the power of property investment. So in terms of, for myself, I've had a journey and invested in property myself. I figured when I was thinking about getting into property investment, I wanted to be that expert. And for me to be the expert, I would have to take the steps, for my own, financial freedom and set some goals and go out there and invest in property myself. And that's exactly what I did. I've been investing property for a bit over the last decade and, seen amazing results. And I think, by having that level of authenticity and, doing it yourself is a great sort of role model in terms of what you've been able to do. But if I look back in terms of my property portfolio, it's allowed me to obviously buy properties. I've bought cheaper price properties with more higher cash flow, which has allowed me to really grow my portfolio. But even though I chose those types of properties, many of those properties have more than doubled within the last 10 years. And it's allowed me to, obviously create that wealth overnight. The business provides the cash flow, and then you use the cash flow from your business to invest in wealth. So it's the same for your clients, where their cash flow may come from their income, may come from a business, but it's really that ability to create an income while you're sleeping. So what we need to do, and part of having great questions with your clients, is to begin with the end in mind, and to make that tangible. And quite often the conversation, when you're having these conversations, it's around what income would they like to create at retirement. So what income would they like to create at retirement, or what is the net asset position that they would like to create at retirement? And by asking these types of questions, you're getting them to start to think with the end in mind, right? Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about the importance of beginning with the end in mind. So it's the same for your clients. It's sort of having that conversation in terms of, all right, if you want to get to here, if you want to be that position where you're financially free, what do we need to start to do? And how can we break that down into a tangible goal and help them to go ahead and reach those goals? So begin with the end in mind. So we have to understand, and a lot of people say, "Oh, Ross, that isn't that considered giving financial advice?" But if you look at it, under the best interest duty, we have, we need to understand the client's needs and their long-term objectives. And one of the vehicles to create wealth and to invest in property is lending. So the lending is the vehicle that gets them to their goals, right? So we need to understand if we're going to provide the vehicle in terms of to get them there, which, in ours, it's the investment loan that we're providing. That is the vehicle that's going to help them achieve their goals. So we really need to, and it is in the client's best interest for us to ask these questions so we get a real understanding of where they want to go. Because if we don't understand where they want to go, how can we provide an effective vehicle, which is the finance, to get them to create wealth and to invest in property over time? So in terms of, if we look at you and we look at your business, and we look at if you wanted to be that broker that is going to choose to be in property investment, there's certain levels that we need to go up to really be able to add value, right? So we need to start with the lower level, which is understanding our credit policy. I've won a lot of deals, especially in property investment, by understanding the technicalities that come with how to get these loans approved, and to enable you to come up with a strategy that is going to get them to where they want to go. So we've got to understand the credit and policy. We've got to understand the basic fundamentals of property in terms of capital growth, leverage, cash flow, all the simple things around what drives the market, to be the best source of information to be able to provide the best level of credit advice. Next thing we need to understand, once we've got the fundamentals, is we need to have a look at our actual sales. And we'll talk about it in a minute, but one of the things in a complex sale, which property investment is, a great book called Challenger Sale if you want to have a look at it, but one of the things they teach in that is they go through about 5 different types of salespeople. And the most successful salesperson is the people who can challenge and educate. So sales, in my opinion, is all about adding value. So for you to go to the next level with your property investment, you really want to educate your clients. You want to be able to challenge and teach them. And this is great for your existing clients. One of the things that we're working on in our program is a strategy this week and on exactly how you go and do this. How can you challenge and educate your clients? All right, so once you've done that, it's around, okay, well, I'm an expert. I understand property investment. I understand the markets. I understand the fundamentals of property. I understand credit and policy. I know how to sell. I've got a great sales process that challenges and educates my clients. Next thing, it puts you in a real authority in terms of, then you can go and really market yourself. So, and this is where you can get to be the sort of the authority that sits in the center, the hub, as if you like, and you can start to branch out and reach out to some referral partners and get some referral business and do some co-marketing. I know for us, we used to do some joint seminars, and we would have buyer's agents, accountants, financial planners, a number of different professionals would come along and present at our seminars that we would do on a monthly basis, which really allowed us to market ourselves and get involved with the property investors and really start to target who we wanted to target. Next, then those relationships become a little bit more strategic. We've done joint podcasts. You get ingrained within their business, and you really become a market authority, and you start to get results for clients, and those clients will then become raving fans. So after that, then the next level is, well, you're going to dominate the market, you're going to become an attraction business, and you're going to win business, which happened to myself in our business, where we were able to win business from other brokers because they said, look, go and see Ross because he's an expert in property investment. And the clients of the existing brokers may have been really happy with those clients, but because they didn't have the level of expertise that we had when it came to dealing with property investors, you actually start to win business. And this is what you want to do within your business, is how can you become that dominating market force where people want to deal with you? And it starts with having that vision of, okay, I want to work my way up. So, we have to start at the bottom and educate ourselves and be more strategic in terms of what we want to do, because that will allow you to be the broker of choice for property investment. So as I said, what do we need to do? We need to focus on the fundamentals, and we need to, once we focus on the fundamentals, we need to be able to explain and teach what those fundamentals are to our clients. And to be able to teach it, you need to understand those things yourself. So I'll go through a couple of them now for you to give you a real good sort of information so you can have this in your toolkit. So one, it's having a great sales process. And I teach a simple 9-box formula where you can seamlessly have a conversation that goes through understanding your client's needs, understanding their goals, that you can go through, challenge and educate, use the tools in your toolkit to show them different graphs, stories, calculators that will challenge and educate and get them confident that they can make the next decisions to go and invest. And we'll go through a simple way that you can qualify your clients and then come up with a solution so you can put them on the path to property investment. But as I mentioned, and I'll share this graph with you because this is what it's talking about. The 5 different types of salespeople. You got the relationship builder, the problem solver, the hard worker, the lone wolf, and the challenger. So this is from the challenger sale. So in a complex sale, the challenger is 54% likely to close the sale. So this is why in property investment, it's so important that we challenge and educate our clients. Because when it comes to customer loyalty, 53% of customer loyalty is built at point of sale. So if you're not having these conversations and you're being transactionally minded and you're not focusing on the relationship, you may be missing out and not adding as much value to your clients as you possibly can, which is going to mean that you're not going to get that future referrals and future business. So again, just a simple structure and a really great sales process is going to allow you to be able to do that and to really create that value up front. So what are some of the different ways then within that you can then create the value within the appointment? So one is looking at some simple sales models, and we teach a couple of different sales models within the program around just a simple graphs and drawings in terms of where they want to be, and they can be quite simple, right? In terms of if we look at it, and I'll just bring something up quickly to show you. But if you look at it, it can be really simple, just like in terms of explaining to clients on a simple sliding scale in terms of where they wanted to be, right? In terms of if this is their sort of their end goal, this is where they need to be financially free, and this is where they are today. Where are they along this this spectrum, right? So are they at the moment? Are they sitting here? And if we look at it, well, how do we move them? How do we move them down the dial, right? How do we move them down to closer to where they want to be? So this is an example of a really simple model. Of course, I go through a lot more detailed sort of models when we go through our trainings and what we do. But in terms of, that's an example of a simple model. And the other thing you can look at is the power of leverage. And a lot of brokers are in the market and looking at leverage, but they really don't understand what leverage is and how to use it effectively and how to have great conversations with clients about leverage. And this is one of the fundamentals that you really need to understand. If we look at, just a simple graph, again, this is not advice, it's just an example only to demonstrate the power of leverage. But if you look at this in terms of, this is an investment that's getting a 12% return and there's no leverage. So there would be 12%. And again, it's not property, it's just talking about general investment. But if you're looking at a $100,000 investment, 80% leverage, it means you're borrowing $400,000. Even though the overall return is low, the power of leverage is high. And this is really what sets property apart from a lot of those other investments, is the fact that you can leverage into an asset that's not set and forget, but it's set and don't worry, because many people have lived in a property for most of their lives, so they're comfortable in terms of investing and understand how property works. So understanding the power of leverage is great. And when you're having the sales conversations, for example, someone with a $200,000 deposit, do they buy one property or two properties? And if they've got two properties and they're growing on average, depending on the growth market, but when you take into account the cash on cash returns, and again, we go through this in a little bit more detail in the program, but you'll understand that, okay, and the penny will drop for them. And, it's like Superman Clark Kent walking into the phone box and turning into Superman. It'll change the way they think, and they'll start to see what's possible, and it'll twig, okay, there's something simple that you've shown me in your toolkit will make me think differently. And that's really what you want to do in your sales process, is how can I get my clients to think a little bit differently? The other types of things that you can challenge and educate people around is, understanding, the basics of, tax in terms of how it works. To take people quite often say, I want to invest because I want to negatively gear. And then you ask the questions around, well, what's your understanding of negatively geared? And again, by simply getting their understanding, you can sort of sometimes clarify and be able to refer them to the right people to get the right information. The other things that you want to understand is around the fundamentals about property, right? So there's macro drivers and there's micro drivers within property. Some of your macro sort of drivers are like the economy, government incentives, what the returns that are getting in terms of the market, what the supply and demand is like in that particular area, where there's massive lots of construction happening, where is there limited land and limited listings, and what's happening on the sort of global scene and national scene around interest rates, and what's happening on the economy in terms of the federal budget and so forth. So they're more your macro drivers. What are your micro drivers? Your micro drivers come down to the particular area. And we say when we're looking at property, there's not one property market. And even in Sydney, you can't compare the eastern suburbs market with, say, the Mount Druitt market, totally different markets. So there's markets within markets. So within those markets, there's vacancy rates, there's different supply and demand, there's different price points, there's different planning and infrastructure, there's different levels of employment. And you look at the mining towns, some in WA where people have lost lots of money because there wasn't the number of employment drivers out there. As soon as mining went down, the whole property market went down. So they're some of the fundamentals about understanding the property market. Then the other things that you can do to add value is looking at your different calculators and your different graphs. So we use calculators around looking at property performance, around the cash flow of the property. You can also have a look at the capital growth. So what are the capital growth rates been over time, and look at some of the graphs around what the property market has done. And history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And so showing clients what property has done, and educating them what it's done in the past isn't going to guarantee what's going to happen in the future, but it will give them more confidence. And when you look at something like this, in terms of, you can see the general trend, if we take it back 40 years, you can see the general trend of property has been in an upward direction. So again, these things are all things to keep in your toolkit that'll allow you to show the value of property. If you look at average growth rates as well, if you look at average growth rates, and we've got a capital growth calculator that is great to play with. I love playing with it for myself, and in terms of for clients, see if I can bring it up on the screen to show you. So something like this, right? So if initial value, if it's over 20 years, you can see what it's going to be worth over time. If we change that to 10 years, for example, you can see, over 10 years, that property be worth, 1.8 million, based on an average sort of growth rate over the last little bit, right? So you can see, looking at these, it's, it's just something good to have a look at, and it's something good to play with for yourselves. But also, when you're having discussions with clients, you can talk about the average growth rates over time. And for them, there's a couple of ways to pay off a mortgage. One is to do it the old-fashioned way. Second way, maybe to look to potentially invest in property and use that as a vehicle to, get them into another asset, which is going to then give the ability to reduce their debt and pay it off over time. So the other way to sort of add value is to look at some other different things, like different spreadsheets that you've potentially got and developed. I know looking at the particular cash flows of a property can give comfort. Quite often a client would expect that, I can't afford another mortgage repayment, not understanding that in some cases it might be less than $50 a week that they need to contribute to the property, or sometimes even less, because you go through and you show them the cash flow and show that, hey, this property is getting a 4% yield. Your interest rate might be 3 or sub 3. So it actually goes a long way to paying for itself when we look at all the expenses that goes with it. So what can you do? What can you do to arm yourself with the education to be able to do that? So there's a number of things that you can do to do that. Again, I recommend that you educate yourself, read as much as you can around property investment, that you subscribe to some of the top podcasts, something like the Property Couch, the Smart Property Investor. There's a couple of others, Real Estate Talk and so forth, to really arm yourself to be that expert. Because if you really want to add value, you want to be an expert, and you've got to arm yourself with the value. Because in my experience, property investment is an area that, one, you can add massive value and create a lot of that financial freedom that everyone wants and your clients want. It is great from your book perspective because it'll grow your book. Quite often these clients will pay interest only on these investments, so it's sticky book. The clients transact more often, and it'll build your business faster. And it's education for yourself, which will help you to also create that personal wealth, which is something that I strongly believe in. Your business creates the cash flow, and then you create the wealth for yourself. I've hoped you've enjoyed this. Again, if you want a copy of the capital growth calculator that I said, just type below. And I look forward to catching up with you real soon.